You got Quasi here for Quasi Media Network and Quasi Animation Studio, where you presently are. I am talking about something that I just watched my buddy uh, Commander Cody over on MRU Studios look at, deal with, and talk about, which is Rhubarb Lip Sync. I am presently in Blender 3.2 3.3.2. Um, but I do recommend when you use this to use anything from like 3.1 to 3.2 because of course right now the pose library is legacy, so you need a pose library that's basically this one. As far as I know, the new one hasn't been, I mean, there hasn't been an update to this just yet, and I'm going to assume you know how to use the program in that regard. You have to set up your phonemes, you have to set up a pose library, and then you use the add-on to basically get it to give you your keys and it syncs to the audio. Okay. Excuse me. So I'm not giving a one for one breakdown on how to set that up. There is a video here. I believe I made a video. I had to check it. Made a video talking about that. If you have any questions or would like to see a video for that, like literally breaking it down and showing you how to do that, cool. But right now, what I want to do is establish showing you how to use this for people that don't have the ability to use something like face to audio, or um, don't have an iPhone to use any of those facial recognition apps, so you can't make use of ARKit or whatnot. And even then, I really believe that once you do those, you have shape keys, because I mean, you can come into Blender and activate the shape key editor, and you'll end up having to still have to edit those keys anyway, because all of that a lot of time is not exactly smooth and beautiful. But with that being said, here I'm going to show you how to get the best result that you can possibly get, and I'm just going to go step by step in how I go about my process. Again, this is me basically saying, because I told uh, my buddy I was going to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and set this to 65 frames. And what I like to do is have the graph editor open, because I'm going to have to use the graph editor. I have the interlay open, and of course I want to see my track. So this meaning that we have a sequencer open so we can see the actual audio. Okay, don't forget to save. All right, now what I like to do is use Animate. So Animate is a free tool you can get from GitHub. Just look it up, just Animate. All right, it's right here at the top here, and it gives you the ability to do animation offset and curve tools. It has a few other things on it also, but even in your animation offset, it has the ability to do masks, so you can mask out a certain area to do a refinement in it. But nonetheless, let's get to it. So these keys are all, these bones are all the facial bones that I have set up in my pose library, okay, with particular poses. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is I wanted you to understand that you may end up just using, depending on your armature setup or your rig setup, you may not have the same bones, which is fine. Don't get freaked out by that. Just use what you have, and believe me, you can do it. But you have to have them set up the way that Rhubarb has them set up here. Okay. What I mean is using what it says. So you can't just go, oh, I'm gonna make that an A or whatever. It's just showing mouth, you know, A B C D E F, A B C D E F G H X. Well, that has nothing to do with nothing. You really want rest L F V W Q O A I E, the sort of a etc. sound where you kind of, where your teeth are almost touching, your mouth is just ever so slightly open, and then the MBPs, or those plosive sounds. Now, this is the thing. You see, mine has U. It's the reason why I'm using it, because my O is closer to it. It's closer to something else. It's closer to a U more than a U. So since U isn't in there, I'm just using my U because it's closer to an O. That's my own mistake. I messed that up. But I'm using audio file. So what you do is you go to your audio file, you click it, you put it in there, and I have it over here so we can hear the playback. Okay. Um, let me make a change real fast, because I do have my speakers on, and I don't want those to trigger any sound uh, on the audio. So I'll hit it playback.
Digga, what are you doing?
Okay, so we see his mouth moving.
Digga, what are you doing?
So it's not a whole lot, right?
What are you doing?
Right? Okay, so you can look at it and tell if you can hear the playback. Let's make sure that it's playing.
Digga, what are you doing?
Yeah. All right.
Digga,
So,
what are you doing?
So that's not a whole lot, right? Now, the issue for me is it just doesn't look as good as I believe it should.
What are you doing?
Okay, so there's keys here we don't need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit X. Make sure all these keys are selected. When you deselect, like I said, if you deselect, and let's say we just select the key, all of this is deselected. I want to select all of it. I'm going to hit X and I'm going to go to clean channels. Okay, I'm hit X again and go clean keyframes. Now it doesn't necessarily always clear all the keys because some of these keys still are not necessary, but it does get rid of channels we don't need. That's why I say clean channels. Okay, so we need to do one bone at a time. Now, usually what I used to do is I go into animate and I'll go to smooth and then just start smoothing, and I'm like, no. So I learned recently again from Commander Cody over at MRU Studios that by way of him looking at another tutorial, that there was an issue where if there was a straight line, it created this popping. So you see how it's kind of doing that. So it's not really rolling into the curve. Now, if we go into the curve, it looks like it's curved, but let's look at how sharp that still looks. So this is pretty straight. Okay. So what I do, and most people would just rotate this. I realized like that wasn't necessarily the way. I was working on something last night and I was like, okay, no. So what I'll do is select the whole thing, right? Okay. And let me push this up. Let me close this a little bit because I still want him on the screen. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll close this. I close it a little bit. And on your smooth, if you click, on animate, if you click, you have an overshoot button. Okay. And it gives you 3 notches between 1 and the -1. And you can hit 1 or you can go past it. I don't want to do that. I usually hit the 3rd one. Now, you might say, well, it did a whole lot. Yeah, it's just smooth the curve out, but it was an extreme overshoot. This is what I do. Don't mean you're going to do that. But what I'll do is I'll get tight as I can, and then I'll click the actual handle, hit G, and then with holding the shift button, give myself a little bit more play on that curve. I'll do the same thing here. So now that curve is a lot smoother. So when we look at it, so you see how it's not opening as much as it should. So he says day, this should open up some more, right? Okay. Now I'm gonna go over to push pull, and I notice that it needs to go the other direction. So I'm gonna flatten the curve back out and push it down. So when I flatten it, I hit S, Y, in 0 and X. Okay. So I'll push it down. So I know he needs to open his mouth. So it's
Digga.
Right? Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing I just did a second ago. And now, because it starts pretty much here, right? I want this to start to slowly go into it already. So I'm gonna push that toward it a little bit more. All right, and grab that curve. Again, do the same thing I did a second ago. All right. Just trying to find that smooth space. All right.
Digga.
So you see how that looked, right? So now let's look at the playback on that.
Digga, what are you doing?
See how fast that was? So you see how it kind of snaps because it's just almost instantly turned into that space. Where right here, it gradually went into it and gradually made its way up. We see that, right? So we get a little tighter. All right, that's what we want for the jaw, okay? So here
Digga,
goes.
what are you?
So it stops here. I want this to actually cap. I don't need those keys.
Digga, what are you? Digga.
All right, so again, I'm going to get tight. And I will pull it out. Right? And for the sake of it, to keep this from tripping out on me. Whoa, why is it doing all that? Oh, I see what it is. Never mind. Okay. It's because I still want that curve to be smooth.
Digga. Digga.
All right. I'll push that forward a couple. Again, this is just finding that place.
Digga. What?
Now, I also know that this is also working against me too. See how it pops up real quick? So don't automatically assume that it's your jaw that's wilding out, because it may not be. Because if we look at scrubbing, let's go and turn scrubbing on under playback.
Digga. Digga.
All right, so I'll hit Nope. I'll go to that key. So what I do is hit GX. This way I can control that axis. All right. Now, I know this one was popping also. We're going to get a little tight up in there too. Uh-oh. I went too far. All right. Let's do that. All right, cool. There we go. Now, pull it up a little bit. Same thing over here. So I see that this key is sort of keeping it from, so we again looking for that straight line. All right, I'm going to free this handle, hit V, and then click free because I want to smooth that handle out without having to completely destroy what I did. And I'm going to go forward too. Now, the reason why I do that is because sometimes you want it to slowly fade.
What are you doing?
Like right here, it's going straight up. I don't need those keys.
Doing.
So that means this one can go back flat again. And then matter of fact, I'll clamp it again. Since this is where it basically is going to start to slowly drop out. So I'll get rid of that one. Uh-oh. What happened there? Oh, let's clamp it. All right, cool. There we go. Yep. Because this is about finding that thing. So this is you basically having to take your time and finding that space. Not being in a hurry. Knowing you want
What are you doing? What are you doing?
See? So there we go.
Digger, what are you doing?
All right. Now I'm going to go up to, even though I know this one is objectively destroying my animation, I'm not going to rush to make an adjustment on it. I'm going to start dealing with the pucker, which, hold on, that's not the pucker. Which one is that? No, this is the pucker. Okay, so deal with the pucker, which allows the facial to blow up and go forward, right? Blah, 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 blah. All right. So, again, not every facial face has these objects. Yours may be a little bit more caricature, but nonetheless, when you clean your keys, the keys that don't when you clean your channels, the channels that don't have any keys on it, or maybe one key on it, is going to get removed because it's not keyed. It just received the first key because it instantly, once it starts making those keyframes, it just gave it the initial, but then it was like, oh, there's nothing else on that bone. Okay, so you have to do the same thing. I mean, I'm saying weird stuff because I'm trying to send a text message. I apologize, yo. Forgive me. Okay, let's get back to it. All right, so it cleans those frames and then it allows you to control that bone on those particular channels. All right, so now, so I'm going to deal with the lip roll, which if we look at the lip roll, this is what we get with it. And this is again for using a character like this, or maybe even a character creator character, but this is a human generator character or HG character. And as you see right here, it's slowly easing up right here, but it's instant. So let's go to it real quick. Even though it looks like it's slowing up, if we look at the curve like this, you see that it's not really genuinely going up. It's snapping upward. All right, so that curve is not there. So I already know that. Let me click both of these. So if I click these, I'm going to make them free. I'm free the handle. All right. All right, and then yeah, do one at a time because that's going to trip out. All right. There we go. So again, this is about finding the proper curve. So now there's a curve there, right? You can slowly see them come up, right? We can slowly see them moving upward. But then they're like peaking and instantly dropping. So we go,
What are you?
So it's like, what are you doing? So what I'm going to do is select these two, and I'm going to scale it just ever so slightly. All right, and then I'm going to free those handles also, because what I want is to, hold on, one at a time, got one at a time, is to pull that out a little bit. And you might think it may not matter, but it totally does. It totally does. So even here we have where it's just this again, this straight line we don't want. All right, so I'm gonna go back to smooth, and I'm gonna hit smooth on these, and you see how it arced only on that side. Oh, 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 because I did no, I did change that one. Why didn't it? That's because I didn't have the last one selected. Let's go. There it is. All right, now because this has a slight arc, right? If I come back, I'm gonna come over back to the other one. I'm not gonna freeze it. I'm just gonna do just like this. I'm gonna do it on both of them. All right, same thing here. Just ever so slightly lean it backward, just ever so slightly. Not a real hard turn. There's a reason for that. So selecting both of them, I'm going to select that last frame. I'm going to G2 because again, I want to give myself a little space in that turn. Okay.
What are you doing?
See,
What are you doing?
it's ever so slightly up. So now I think I'm going to rotate a little bit because I just want to see.
What are you doing?
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Digger, what are you doing?
Right. We're starting to look a little bit more refined.
What are you doing?
Just from those two actions, okay? All right, so now I already know that my side, those, depending on your rig, you may have bones that literally allow you to smile or give you a smirk. So these are like for like a dimple or like a inset to the cheeks, right? So this one still has keys on it. I mean, channels that it doesn't use. It does not move on the Y in any way. It doesn't move on the Y. Like it's showing you that, but it's moving on the X. Okay. So if I click the Y, it doesn't move, does it? But it's moving on the X. Okay. So
Digger,
I'm going to just delete the Y because it's only moving on the X, and I'll delete the Y myself because I see already it's not using it. Okay. And then I'm going to click one smooth, do the same thing over here and click the first one. So I'll go back to it. Now I'm going to select both of them because I want to do them both, but with a little bit of a variation. All right, so again, I'm going to give it this slight little push. And this is just one of those things that becomes tedious. But if you want to refine animation, and you just, it's still faster than trying to sit down and hand animate each individual part. It's still faster than just sitting there doing each facial motion independently. Now another thing is you can actually layer this if you want it to be extreme. So say for instance I get done with this and I want the poses to be more extreme, I would just go on top of this with an add layer in the NLA. So in the NLA I would just add a layer to this, and then on top of that layer push that key further. Now you could do it here, but it would just make it wonky versus putting a layer on top of it, which just adds to it, which would give it a little bit of a lip bump, and that lip will stay there even though it'll go through that motion. Its final key would leave it in that position if you want them to have like this sort of like gritty frown on their face. Okay, let's check our time. We're at 18 minutes, not too bad. All right, let's go to the other one. And again, I already know what I want, so we're gonna do the same thing. All right. And this is something that you find yourself doing a lot of when you're working on a solo project, is you'll find yourself working on a lot of stuff like this.
Digger, what are you doing?
Not too bad. I want that last part to be a little bit slower on the in going out. All right, there we go. And this one, there we go.
Digger, what are you doing? Digger, what are you doing?
All right, so the nose Again, we have keys here we don't need, which are on the Y, because this is only on the X. So again, know what yours is. Don't just start removing keys and don't know what your stuff is. Okay. I just happen to know what mine is. All right. So I'm gonna fold those like that. Let's get a little tighter on these. See what I have here. All right. All right. Now I know you might say, well, hold on, Kwasi, you start doing this a little differently than you were a second ago. Yes, I am. Because it's not that it's a bad action. It's just trying to find the proper one. And I know my rig. That's the reason why I'm doing it like that. If this was a different rig, I wouldn't do that.
Digga, what are you doing?
See how it's now
Digga,
now it's not popping like it was in the face.
Digga, what are you doing?
Now it's a matter of getting this pucker in order now, right? All right, let me click this one time. All right, so it's still showing us this curve. See how it's still not that great? So I'm going to break that curve by making it free and then just finding the proper curvature. There we go. I'll do the same thing with this one because again, where it is, I want it to have curvature, but I don't want to completely destroy the beginning part of it. And again, you see now how smooth that curve is compared to what it was before. And this is part of the power of the graph editor, man. Like I avoided it for I don't know how long because I was like, it just seems like a lot of extra stuff for no reason. It wasn't. I was just tripping. All right. So sometimes I push a key back one and forward one. So understand these are just workflows that I do. So this is not necessarily a standard of any sort. So don't get to going, well, hold on, he did. No, don't do yourself like that. Now, if we look at this, let me go to this real quick. Now, if we look at this and we get real tight on that, you see how sharp that corner is? If you look at it from this standpoint, see how sharp that corner is? That's a lot sharper than you would think it is, huh? So I'm going to free that turn and then just draw it out. Nope, 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 nope. Matter of fact, let me undo that. Let's go back to clamp. All right. And what I'll do is on this one, I'll turn it. I want to free this one. That's the one I'm going to free because I just thought about it. I need that curve to be a little bit straight. There we go. All right. So now,
What are you?
so this is the like the kissy face pucker, right?
What are you?
So here it's a little too fast for me, so I think I'll push it forward one, and then on this one I'll free it again. So this is just sitting down, thinking it through, and not just being instant with it, right? And you might say, well, hold on, you changed the curve up a little bit. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. All right. Ever so slightly, not great. All right. Go back one. I say go back one. All right.
What are you doing?
Yep. Way better. All right. Now that one's done. That one's done. So I know that there is an animation on this part, which is the lip roll. So we look at it. The lip rolls up and down.
Digga, what are you? Digga, what are you?
All right. Real small changes. Um, yeah, as you can see, it's still pretty sharp on that edge, right? So so again, you don't always have to free it, but I mean, I like to free it a little bit because I want that curve to be smooth, and then I tend to pull it down a little bit. So I mean, again, this is just one of those things you would do for yourself and thinking about how you want that curve to move. So let's free these because I know that it looks great, but not necessarily mean that it is. All right, because this pushed down, right?
What are you doing?
There we go.
What are you doing?
All right, I can deal with that. So now these are the biggest culprits I've learned is right here. These are the lower lip roll, and they do a number. They It does a number sometimes on an animation. Um, Again, this is with human generator. I mean, not human generator, with auto rig. So, uh, in reference to the meta rig that, because I use quick rig for this, so the meta rig gives you a specific facial uh, rig, and me using auto rig put me in a position where I realized, like, okay, I have to still use the rigified face, if that makes sense. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing here. Grab this one and fold it. Am I using? All right, cool. Turn, turn, turn. All right. I think this one needs to be turned also. Yeah. Yep. All right. Yeah. Let me free this one because this one seems like it's gonna be playing with me. So let's free it.
What are you doing?
All right. Yeah. Huh. I think I need to free that one too because this is gonna have to slide down a little bit. There we go. All right. All right. As you can see, the curve moves every time you make a change, right? So, yeah, showing you that I like the fact that you get to see an update on just how much the curve changed on your adjustment. All right. And one of the biggest things I want to tell you guys is don't be afraid to have to work on something for a while. For the longest, I was like, man, this is taking too long. But then I thought about, yeah, that's part of it. Like it just is. All right, let's see.
Digga, what are you doing?
All right, so
What Digga, what are you?
why is that opening back up? That shouldn't be opening.
Digga, what are you? Digga, Digga, what are you? Digga.
Right here. All right, don't need it. So again, find it.
Digga,
See how this popping? It should be. So that's this. Never mind. All right, I see what my issue was.
Digga, Digga,
No, hold on.
Digga, Digga, what are you doing?
What's better?
Digga, what are Digga,
But this is still popping too hard for me. It shouldn't be popping.
Digga, Digga, what Digga, what are you doing?
There it is.
What are you doing? What are you? What are you? What are you? What are you doing?
Yep. Looking a little bit better, right?
Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
All right, so these cheeks, right? So I'm gonna tell you another trick too. Let's say you spin it all around, right? And you just aim this rear part that way. And again, this is just a testing of the workflow. Not necessarily means how you do it. Because what you just been seeing me do with the um, freeing the key is how I tend to work with this. And it's just way easier.
Digga, what are you doing?
But that smoothed it out a lot more, right? So let's look at
Digga, what are you doing?
right. Okay, so I know here and here, again, it's showing keys I don't need, which are on the X. Not using those, it's just on the Y. Right. Again, using the smooth on animate.
Digga, what are you doing?
And here we go. Now let's look at the last move.
Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
Right. So now you have a
Digga,
pretty smooth animation. So what I'll do is I'll select everything real quick. And then I'll stay on smooth. I'll turn this off because I want to see the playback. Make sure everything's selected. And I'll just let
Digga,
it play
what are
several
you
times.
doing? Digga, what are you 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 doing?
Right. So
Digga, what
I'm
are you
just sitting
doing?
there with and setting out to smooth the keys as much as possible, and just playing with it just ever so slightly. And
Digga,
now,
what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
and there it is. So now there's also a tongue in here, and I know for a fact that it's probably something real small. Yeah.
Digga, what are you doing? Digga,
I see it moving there a little bit, ever so slightly, right?
digga.
See what it looks like from the side. See if it's moving any. Right there, right?
What?
Yeah, just a little bit. Let me see if I push it. I feel like it's yep. See, sometimes the keys aren't in the right place. That was not in the right spot. Yeah, it happens. All right, so here we go.
Digga, what are you doing? 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 Digga, what are you doing?
Now, another thing is to watch out for another thing that I've noticed is, say you're trying to get this to be more extreme, and you have a push pull and you have a average scale on animate. So let's say, for instance, I play this right,
Digga, what
and
are
I
you
just
doing? Digga, what are you doing?
right.
Digga, what are you doing?
So you
Digga,
don't want to
what
get
are
too
you
extreme
doing?
with that, right? So let's do the
Digga,
push pull,
what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
right? So
Digga, what are you doing? 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 Digga,
So
what are
if
you
you're gonna
doing?
go more
Digga,
extreme, right?
what?
So you're gonna go more extreme, right? So the best practice is to just pay attention to just how far it's going, making sure that nothing's undershooting or overshooting to the point where it just looks destroyed. Okay, and I'm just playing with it, just showing you the abilities, the things that you could test and play with Animate. Okay.
Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
All right. So for instance, since we overshot, right, on the chin here, I already know this part where he says
Digga,
I want this to be more extreme now. So I'm going to push it just ever so slightly. And I know I want it to start to come in a little bit sooner. So I'm going to come into these two keys. I'm going to free this one. Now I'm going to free both of them. Okay, so because I want that curve to be a little bit more extreme. Because you can see it looks a little broken, right? And then go from there. All right. Still looks a little. I still don't like it. Let me see if I fix it a little bit more. All right.
Digga, what are you doing? Digga, 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 what are you doing? 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 Digga.
Okay, so now we see clearly that these are way more extreme than they were before. Just these four keys alone, right? So you see that you can push them even further if you select them by themselves. So if we look at it, go.
Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
Come here and push those. No, it has to be between these. There we go. All right. Yeah.
What
So
are you what are you doing? What are you doing? Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
all right. So I'll take these and push them down a little bit more. There we go.
Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
All right. Click the tongue.
Digga, what are you doing? Digga, what are you doing?
Yeah. All right. So let's check the time. Almost 40 minutes. All right. So guys, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you in regards to that. So the biggest thing here is playing with the testing. It say you have very long line and very long lines, and you want to um, refine it as much as you can. This is pretty much one of the ways you go about it. This is the way I went about it. So I'm going to show you something I did in this particular short that I'm working on. Let's go to animation and we'll go to her uh, file. So this is the character Lucy. This is her dialogue file. And if we look at her dialogue file, if I turn off everything else, she's going to turn sideways because the first key is not locked for some reason. Don't know why, but hey, whatever, right? Okay, so
I know I heard you.
hold on real quick. Y'all give me 1 second. So we're just going to look at that real quick. Uh-oh. Boom. All right, cool. All right. Same thing here. Because I noticed that when I'm trying to use an animation with any particle systems on, it just gets to freaking out. All right. So we look here, we go back to her beginning file. Let me turn auto off. So
I know I hurt you, but at least give me a chance to make it up to you. I know what I did was wrong and I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, but at least give me a chance to make it up to you. I know what I did was wrong and I'm sorry.
so here is is when you look at the playback, um, you get to see, like, I mean, you can clearly see how much is done, how many curves there are, all of what was done in each curve. Um, some of these I hadn't even played with, like this one I didn't even mess with because it was like
You,
necessary
but
because I needed it to be flat right there, and it wasn't moving
I,
anyway. So
no,
here,
I heard you. No, I heard you. I heard you. No, I heard.
even though I don't like that, see now you got me over here playing with it. All right, all right, cool. So let me see. Matter of fact, I'll clamp that, push it up. All right,
No, I heard you.
there it is.
No, I heard you.
Yep, cool. All right. So yeah, like I was saying, that's one of those things where you just sort of have to sit back and say to yourself, okay, how would it work out? Let's come back over here. I'm gonna click center because I don't want it to.
No, I heard you, but at least give me a chance to make it up to you. I know what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry.
So there you have it. One of the main objectives with all of this is to show you that it's possible to still do those things you want to do to make that short, to make that film, to make that video, whatever medium you, whatever content you want to create for the medium that is known as animation, you can do it. All right. So with that being said, man, nothing but love. Y'all come through. Um, have new stuff coming out. Intend to continue the making anime series. Understand this is not about showing you how to animate. This is not about showing you the anime series, making anime series. It's about showing you the process of getting to each stage. It's really showing you the workflow and pipeline. If you just look at the videos that are already there, it's pretty much everything. So the doing the last part of it is really more subjective because you can end up changing things around. I'll be doing a video about how I like showing my workflow in Blender, of course, but with my movie Dark Awakening Kalita, and you get a chance to see some of what's going on there. And I'll be dropping some more behind the scenes stuff there. I guess I can just do the workflow and then just do some commentary on top because I understand that sometimes it's just easier to to just kind of talk about it rather than just sitting down for an hour or two just animating and not saying anything to you guys. So anyway, talk to you later. None but love.